The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, greetings from Minneapolis, everybody. Coming to you cordless. It's Tuesday night, October 28th, 2025. It's 9:01 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6:01 on the West Coast, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8:01 Central Daylight Time. No, Central Time, period. And I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night, show number 287 if you're keeping score at home, and someday there'll be a test. Our guest tonight is BRUCE De Torres. He's an author, he's an actor, he's a speaker, and he has written some books. And we taped this afternoon, and this is a really fascinating conversation because we touched on all sorts of stuff. This guy, his book is called, let me give you the title of his book. It's called God's School, 9/11 and JFK, The Lies That Are Killing Us and the Truth That Sets Us Free. And we talked about all that stuff. God's School, 9/11, and JFK. So stick around for this. This is really cool. Tomorrow night, I'm going to do this fairly quick because we got a big show here. Tomorrow night, we got Joe Wolverton. He's a writer for the New American Magazine from the John Birch Society. They put that out. He's a writer there. Fascinating guy, too. On Thursday, well, we got a Halloween show, I guess. Nils Gravelius is coming on, and this will be the first time we've had the same guest on 3 times in 1 month. He was on about 3 weeks ago, and we reran that show last night as a best of. And he's coming on again on Thursday. I love talking to this guy. He's coming on for a specific reason. He's a private investigator in the city of Los Angeles. And we're going to talk about the Louvre heist in Paris, where they stole the crown jewels of France, and his take on all that, and whether these people were brilliant or crazy or stupid. I don't know. I'm interested. Nils is a fascinating man. I don't think it matters what we talk about, but that's specifically what he's coming out to talk about. And then also Jonathan Lockwood, our military historian and strategist, he's coming on tomorrow on Thursday night too, because on Thursday afternoon, Trump is meeting with President Xi of China. I think they're meeting in South Korea. Excuse me, not North Korea. No, nobody's meeting anybody in North Korea. No, apparently that's not true. Trump has said that he is willing to meet with Kim Jong-un again. I don't know if that would be in North Korea or somewhere else. I have no idea. But he said he's willing and able to do it. And apparently they're trying to set that up. So I'm not going to North Korea. No, I'm not going anywhere. It's like, I'm a very lucky man. I've had a chance to travel the world all my life, and I'm done with it. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't. So yeah. Also, I want to point out tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we're gonna open the phone lines after our interview with Wolverton. We're gonna take calls for it. We haven't been taking a lot of calls lately. We got too much stuff going on here. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're gonna open the phone lines tomorrow. I think our friend Think is going to call in. We invite you to call in too. The number is 325-CALL-JIM. You don't have to be watching the show to do it. We'll have show starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. Usually the interview is done around 10 o'clock, and that's where we start taking the calls. So that's what we got going on here. And we got a little Jimcast after the interview with Bruce in a few minutes here. Talking about a few things. Bruce and I will talk about the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. I even addressed that in the Jimcast too, because it's one of the strangest goddamn things ever. So at any rate, here's BRUCE De Torres in 12 seconds. Joining us from his office in Petaluma, California, Bruce De Torres, author. Oh, geez. Okay, now I gotta check my notes. I'm terrible. I'm awful. You don't want to know me, Bruce. You don't. It's like it's just too much stuff going on. Okay. Well, I lost this. Holy, there it is. Actor, author, speaker. You're the director of communications for the American Small Business League, and you run the Don't Cheat Women Project. And your book is called God, School, 9/11, and JFK. It's a lot of stuff to cram into one book.
Yes.
You decide you had to get it all off your chest, huh?
I found a way. Yes.
And you've done a lot of acting. Let's give us a little bit touch on your background here. How'd you get into all this stuff?
I got into it because 9/11 inflamed me, infuriated me. In 2004, when I was encouraged to do research into 9/11, Jim, and I found that the official story is nonsense. And after 10 years of researching many, many things behind the scenes, went down all the rabbit holes, I conceived a book, and I worked on that for another 7 years. And then in 2000, I pitched it to the one and only publisher that I had in mind, and he took it on, and I started doing marketing for him. And for 4.5 years, I did marketing for TrineDay.com.
Tony Lyon?
No, he's Skyhorse. I was with Trine Day.
Oh, I thought you were with Skyhorse. My apologies. Sorry about that.
No. Skyhorse is great. Trine Day is great. These are all those books that challenge official history.
Yeah.
And I started my own podcast interviewing muckrakers, truth tellers, independent researchers. And I found Lloyd Chapman, who is the president and founder of this American Small Business League, exposing how small business contracts are really going to big businesses. Just another scandal, outrage, example of how the federal government is captured by big business. A really worthy endeavor, and he recruited me to do this. Yeah,
Bruce, I have to ask you. Now, I know a lot about the JFK assassination. I'm completely steeped in that. I know very little about 9/11. Could you explain to us what the hell's going on there?
Oh, for sure. Like JFK's assassination, myself and others, it's beyond the shadow of a doubt that the official story is nonsense. Now we can point fingers, and it would take a real investigation with certainty to say who actually did it. I could tell you who
You're
think
talking about JFK now, right?
No, 9/11.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
all right, okay,
I segued into that. Sure. And my book has a great chapter on it, and it explains, look, not only why does the official story fall apart, but look who it implicates. Like JFK's assassination, 9/11, Jim, has the fingerprints of the deep state all over it, the CIA all over it, and at the very obvious, the cover up by those in power, which really implicates them. The W. Bush administration and the mainstream media to this day, and it's really, really worth knowing who our enemies are. We have to be adults who can tell ourselves we can handle the truth and have an open mind to, if this is all news to somebody listening or watching and they think this is all conspiracy theory nonsense, I really just implore people to calm down, go slow, and look at the evidence yourself. Don't just go by what your favorite, prognosticators have told you all your life. Look at things yourself.
Yeah. Okay, Bruce, I understand the motivation on the JFK killing. Matter of fact, there's almost too many of them. I don't understand what the motivation would be, the motive for killing all those people in those buildings in 9/11. What would be the motive of that?
The immediate and ongoing things that followed it, the unnecessary war on terror, which perpetuated our unnecessary military-industrial complex, the control of the countries over there and their resources, and really controlling through chaos. The major chaos of the first waves of refugees from our wars on terror in the Middle East flooded Europe with all those refugees that have caused chaos there and destabilized those countries to justify the eradication of many civil liberties, the imposition of many police state measures. And now it's the justification for digital IDs over there. And the same thing over here. The bottom line is it's the same motive that many countries throughout history have always taken their own countries to war and created wars, Jim, as a means to justify increasing the control and surveillance of our own people. And it goes on and on from those broad things.
So you're basically saying it's a false flag operation, basically.
Yes, it was that generation's equivalent of the Kennedy assassination, just as I am convinced COVID-19 and the vaccines have been this generation's nightmare, self-inflicted
Oh
false
yeah,
flag attack.
yeah, no doubt about that. Matter of fact, my theory has been, and a lot of people have come on here to and have repeated it without my prompting, about the fact that I think that China, basically the guys in China said, let's run a little experiment. Let's release a virus that's not, well, it's deadly, but it's not too deadly, and let's see how the world reacts. And of course, we fail miserably. That's my that it was that they propagated it just to see what happened, to see for future endeavors, and also that maybe a lot of people in the United States went along with it. That's my personal 2 bits.
Right. And I would wrap around that the collusion of the Western nations who, in lockstep, destroyed populations and economies in the name of protections and protocols that did more harm than good. Whether or not China was involved, whether or not the virus was real or not, to me, those are open questions. Indisputably is the harm of the vaccines, which has to have obviously came from the giant money and medical and media powers that have inflicted on us. It's the elephant in the room. The surging numbers of injuries and disabilities and cancers and deaths in the countries that had major vaccine uptake, Jim, is the asteroid that's heading to us. That's that's going to break through unless they do something worse to us to distract us, and that is a severe possibility.
And you spent then 7 years writing this book. And people, one of the things I would like to have authors on, Bruce, is people. I don't know if people appreciate how hard writing books is if you're going to do it yourself anyway. I mean, it's a long slog, which is the reason I haven't done it. I just do this. But have you given some thought, like, why do humans want to control other humans? I mean, this whole scenario is set up, like you said, to basically control the populace. What is the point?
Well, the good news, as I force myself to see it, is the bell curve model of reality and humanity, that the vast majority are good, 80, 90%. And we just want to do what we see everybody else doing. We just want to go along. That's our strength and our weakness. Now, on the fringes, you've got the extremes. You've got the saints. You've got the volunteers at soup kitchens. You've got the Mother Teresas. You've got the Kennedys. You've got Martin Luther King Jr., who labor selflessly to give and give and give and uplift and inspire humanity. And on the other end, you've got the psychopaths who go mad with power over others, who lust for power over others, and who gravitate toward and get groomed into positions of power by others who want to make money and torture and sicken and oppress and kill and sacrifice millions for their literal insanity. And the vast majority in the middle sway either way. And that's why it's vital for you and I, who love life and who love the truth, to do these kind of things, to wake people up to the need to ask ourselves, why do I do what I do? Why do I go along with it? Why do I trust these talking heads on TV just because they're wearing white lab coats and say that they work for public health departments? What do I really know about the ingredients in these so-called medications? But that's the big answer right there.
Yeah, but it's really interesting because for the first time ever now in the last few years, it does seem like the mainstream media is really losing their influence, don't you think?
Yes, which many astute observers say is the reason why current events and the actions of many governments at home and abroad are getting more and more insane because they're getting more desperate in order to capture our attention and lead us and cause us to do things.
Yeah,
The
very good.
internet, the internet is great for real truth tellers and honest and good people, but it's to a large degree still the Wild West, where there's all kinds of lies and shenanigans, really intentionally created by those who would confuse, to scare, to oppress, and rule over us with tsunamis of misinformation from intelligence agencies and every other force under the sun.
Well, I don't have to tell you. It's like millions of people on social media figured out that a really good way to get attention is to say something absolutely outrageous, you know, and the media, who has become increasingly lazy. Like just 10 minutes ago, I was on the New York Post, looking at the New York Post, and about a third of the articles are basically about what somebody said about another person. I don't consider that news. That doesn't change my life. And, you know, unless maybe somebody's running for office, maybe. But you know what some baseball player said about some manager, do I care? No, I don't care, you know?
Right. And that's why popular podcasts like Joe Rogan, et cetera, have the big numbers, and the mainstream CNN, and I presume the readership of the New York Post, it's dwindling because it's an insult to intelligence.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right. So you were talking about digital ID, and this is one of your things. First of all, I want to go over to Britain. What the hell's going on over there? Oh my God. It's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, that place is it's collapsing as a civilization, the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I lay that at the feet of the destabilization from that influx of refugees that we caused, because they create problems in order to impose solutions we would never accept any other way, like the loss of our freedoms represented by a digital ID. Good for the people if they're pushing back. Good for some of their representatives in parliament if they're speaking up in defense of freedom and trying to push back. And good for you bringing it up, because not enough Americans are aware of the threat of the digital ID, which has inroads in this country since the real ID in 2005. And that's going to be an instrument of tracking, tracing, and controlling that almost certainly would get linked to a digital programmable currency. Right now, that's speculation, but there's enormous evidence to prove that that's where things are going. And you look at China as a major example, and all rulers and specifically the money powers that are behind all governments, that's what they want, is total control over humanity. And then there's a great case to be made that esoterically and occult and more hidden features, that the real elite of the elite at the tippy top of the strings of control of media and governments and weaponry and militaries are satanic lunatics who really revel in masochistic sacrifices. I don't have to prove that. I can just make the case, as you can, you know, look how off the rails we are, how not America under the Constitution we are. Investigate those crimes, clean things up, and then on the weekends we could sit in front of a fire and put our feet up and say, now, did they do that because they've got satanic beliefs? I don't know, but let's first get in line with the Constitution and prosecute criminals.
It's hard to ascribe motive when people are crazy. Because does it matter? They're nuts.
They're nuts. And also, unfortunately, when you see major crimes go uninvestigated. Now, the Charlie Kirk assassination is a prime example of that. The way that it's being handled, the way that it's supposedly being investigated, the way that there's a gag order on hundreds, if not thousands of witnesses, are screaming hints and clues to we who have studied false flags in the past and have seen official stories get demolished, like JFK and 9/11 and COVID. It reeks of yet another op. It reeks of yet another effort by authority that we're supposed to trust, who's supposed to work for and protect us, is pulling a fast one on us.
Bruce, don't you think that the Butler attempt on Trump was even worse? We know virtually nothing about Thomas Crooks. Nothing. There's some kid, 20 years old, is on a roof. He gets shot 10 seconds, killed 10 seconds before he pulls the trigger. We know nothing about him. Nothing.
Nothing. And it's like it never happened. It's sucked into the George Orwell's memory hole. And even the president, the FBI, the DOJ, It's like I wouldn't know where to begin to find the official version, let
Right.
alone decent independent research into it.
Yeah, you had a 20-year-old kid who had burner phone, multiple burner phones. What does a 20-year-old kid have burner phones for? You know, who's
Right.
he talking to that he can't, doesn't want to keep a record of? I mean,
Right.
the whole thing was crazy, and not to mention the fact if you're going to try to kill a presidential candidate, the easy, or not only be easiest, but the best way to do it was to recruit some naive 20-year-old kid who thinks he's doing something for his country. You tell him, we need a patriot to do this, climb up on the roof. And they know he's going to get shot in 10 seconds. They know that, whether he's successful or not. And I just find this just amazing. It's like, no, so obviously something happened here and nobody's pursuing it. Now, and I totally, I don't, I don't know if that really happened with the Kirk thing. I mean, he might just be a complete lunatic, but the pattern in most of these instances is that more than one person was involved. You know,
Yeah. And to me, the most frightening thing is that the president of the United States isn't raising an alarm, causing truth to come out, isn't pressing for real investigations into these things. Neither are the oversight committees of Congress and the Senate that should, or the DOJ and the Attorney General and the director of the FBI. Like, are they all controlled? Are they all terrified? Are they all blackmailed?
yeah,
It's amazing how urgent it is to have these kind of conversations to inspire people to take a deep breath, get calm, and look into it. Because if we as individual adults don't inspire others to rise up and take responsibility for that, we deserve to go the way of all failed states, which is demolished and destruction while exploiters and gangs of criminals use and abuse a government for their own insane purposes. Nazi Germany is a perfect example of that, just a
yeah,
descent into madness.
and it's hard to. I don't know if you agree with me on this, and you tell me if you do. Trump does not seem to be afraid of a lot of things, but yet you're right. There are some things that just like don't seem to come up. Now you may not buy this. You're talking about conspiracy theorists. I'm like top on this. The UFO situation. I mean, there's many people who have said Trump has been briefed on this about the fact that these things are real, and we have people visiting us from outer space, and he doesn't seem to want to talk about it, and no one knows the motivation for not talking about it. I mean,
Right.
so and I don't, but that's just one of many examples. There's many things that even our president, who seems more or less incapable of fear, more or less, that does not talk about, that nothing comes up, you
Right.
know?
I've looked into it on and off my whole life, and then through various stages very, very heavily. What is your evaluation, Jim, of how much of all sightings and events are man-made?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Um, Now in the 21st century, 2025, I think the majority of this stuff is ours. But that said, I think we have it because of crashed extraterrestrial technology we have reverse engineered. I think matter of fact, that's been the latest line about the fact that those Tic Tac videos were actually, those are Lockheed Martin things, and I was saying that from the beginning. I've also personally seen one of those black triangular spacecrafts, those huge ones. And I don't know. I mentioned those for my late great friend Jazz Shaw, who he was a UFO reporter, came on many times. And I said, when I saw it, my initial reaction was, that's one of ours. And I don't know why. I have no basis for saying that. I have nothing. I saw nothing that maybe led to that. That was just my reaction is, that's one of ours. And I don't
Right,
know why I thought that, but I mean, we've been rumored to have these things for years. So
right. Are you aware of the claim made by Warner von Braun's assistant that he warned her, listen, after communism, they're going to create a war of cultures against Muslim terrorism. And when the last card they're going to play is an alien invasion. And
that's right.
remember, it's all nonsense. What do you make
I
about
I
that?
don't know about the thing in the middle, but I do know that the that the idea is to play the false flag alien invasion thing. That's basically on the docket. I understand that. I've been trying to tell the public here through this show that there's a probability that's going to happen. You know,
right, Project Bluebeam, I think it's referred to in the research.
Oh, I've never heard that. That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And Richard Dolan is a great UFO investigator.
Fantastic. Probably the best in America right now. Yeah.
Nice.
Arguably.
Decades. And Stephen Greer is a big question for me. What do you make of him?
You know, I don't know. That's funny. I just don't know. I mean, he says some really outrageous stuff, but the thing is, some of this outrageous stuff is true, you know, and so I don't know. I do not know what to make of this guy. I really don't. No, you tell me. What do you think?
Well, at first, I was won over by him seeing the old video of the 2001 event at the National Press Club. You're aware of that?
Well, yes, right.
Okay. All those people testifying, all these old guys who they don't look rich. They've got nothing to lose. I'm former military. I handled crashed bodies. I'm willing to testify before Congress. That is so persuasive. And yet, deeper research shows that I think the Disclosure Project or Dr. Stephen Greer's first research was in cahoots with a Rockefeller. Now, wait a minute. That adds a lot of credence to the people who critique that it's a psyop, that it's all been man-made from advanced tech that we're never allowed to see what the real power people have developed. It's always 50 or 100 or more years more developed than us. So, but Stephen Greer seems so sincere. I've never met him. I try not to have an opinion of somebody I haven't met personally.
Right.
But he's the big question, because I've seen a lot of reports of his encounters in the desert, his close encounters of the fifth kind, and what they seem to conjure, etc. But that opens up the possibility of the interdimensionality and also the nature of reality vis-a-vis quantum physics and consciousness, which I'd love to study as much as I can.
Yeah. Also, I mean, it's not necessarily an either or thing. You can buy the story of all those old guys at the press club and still think Stephen himself is suspect. You know, so
Yes.
I don't know. I simply just don't know what to make of it. I just don't.
I'll tell you real quick, because you saw your black triangle. When I was in 7th grade, I was watching TV with my brother and my father. And my brother went to the window and he said, "There's something stupid out there." And I followed him automatically to the front door. And floating above the street right in front of us, about the size of a car or a van, was something. My hands just activated my camera. I'll try to hold still.
All right, okay.
was something silently floating that had jumbled lights circling in a circle around its base and one solid light on its top. My brother screamed, "Dad, Dad!" And then the thing went straight away from us. We watched it for a few minutes on the horizon. I'll speed up this story. The next day I was hanging out with some friends. And out of the blue, I said, "I saw a UFO last night." And Jimmy, last name I'll say, said he saw one too. I quickly drew a picture of mine. He said, "That was it." He said, "That was in my backyard, hovering over the trees for about 20, 25 minutes. It made a low humming sound." This was in 1974. It was a million years ago.
Yeah.
So, but I saw something beautifully inexplicable that opened my mind to all this a long time ago.
Bruce, you look good, man. I just turned 70. I would never guess that you were that old. My God.
I'll be 64 in a month or two.
Oh, you're wearing it well. You're wearing it well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you've done some acting, and this sounds weird, but I want to talk to you about that too. So, and you've done a lot of comedic acting. So here, my theory is, now I've done a little acting too, and I've been involved. Well, basically, my background's the entertainment business, all sorts of stuff. But I've done some acting, and my theory is that, and also I'm bolstered by this. I should tell you, I have one of my cousins is a very famous assistant director in Hollywood. I'm not going to name her name, but because she doesn't want to be involved in this, but she is. And my theory is that dramatic film acting really doesn't take any real talent. Comedic acting takes a huge amount of talent. That's the difference between the men and the boys is the comedy. The dramatic acting. My cousin told me, she said, "Jim, we can pull somebody off the street at random, and if they're smart enough to be able to follow instructions, we can make them look like a acting genius on the screen." And I totally believe that based on my own experience. Your thoughts?
I do. I love stage acting. I would agree with that appraisal. I haven't done enough on camera to contrast, uh, you know, really honestly, you know.
Uh-huh.
But my impression is, yeah, you're up there alone on the stage, and you've got to figure it out.
Yeah, well,
And you,
stage acting is different too. I mean, stage acting isn't film acting. I mean, yeah, it's more a craft than it is a talent, I'd say myself. Would you agree with that?
a
It's like,
craft. Sure. Well, it's like anything. There are skills, there's a sensibility, there's an awareness, and
right.
then there are instincts that get developed, and you just get, the more you do it, the looser and looser and open to the impulses of the moment to solve problems that come up, because you're on a tightrope without a net,
Yeah,
and
right. It's real
it's
time.
it's just really, really thrilling, and for me, it was an adventure in consciousness and paying attention. It was an adventure of appreciating, the people I was talking to. I really loved it. I did until I was in my mid-30s. I didn't want to do anything else, and I really, really loved it.
Yeah, there's something about it. I'm a pianist, and to me, it's kind of, well, even this doing this is kind of like playing jazz. It's like you're in the moment. It's like you don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, there's it's a certain thrill if you're gonna for people who can appreciate it, I guess. You
No,
know,
I totally relate. Yeah, because 5 years ago or so, when I started doing podcasts for my boss at the publishing company, and then being interviewed, and then creating my own podcast, this kind of conversation, I get the same joy out of it as acting. When I do, after an interview like this, or a show like this where I'm hosting it or whatever, I feel exactly the same way as when I got off stage after a performance. Very exhilarated and very youthful and very young feeling still.
yeah, yeah. So, where are you on the whole AI thing? And that kind of blends into the digital ID thing too. Oh, first of all, I got to go back to that. So, I have a liberal friend of mine we were talking about the digital ID, and he says to me, he says, "Well, why should I care about this if I'm not doing anything wrong?" If he said his rationale is that why if I'm a good citizen, why should I care about the fact that the government's tracking me? You know?
Yeah, the answer is all of human history, because all powers used by a government are always expanded, and they are eventually, if not automatically, used against a government's own people.
Yeah.
It's the slavery it's taking us toward and will take us toward.
Yeah, that's exact. I totally agree with your answer. You're absolutely right. If any time corruption can be introduced, it will happen. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and Bobby Kennedy Jr., when he was campaigning for president for a year and a half, he made so many great points, and one of them was, there's never been a government that didn't want more power. They never acquired a power that they didn't use until it was abused, and it
Right.
really is, there's never been a government in power that didn't squeeze their own resources and their own people first before any brutality they inflicted against anybody else. And by many measures, people say we are a dying empire. Hence the chaos and the confusion, society wise, even economically. It rises and falls. So we'll go through patches where, like, okay, we feel kind of stable. But long term, there are many who say the worst of empires die by when the worst abuses that they inflict overseas, they bring them home, and eventually their last recourse is to inflict and exploit their own people as horribly as they did the people that they conquered and exploited.
And we're only at this for 250 years right now. I have a friend of mine who always brings this up about the fact that uh, the Roman Empire went on for 2,000 years, and toward the end, you can imagine people saying, "Well, this has gone on forever. This isn't never going to go away." And of course, it did. But after 2,000 years, you think, "Well, maybe it is never going to go away." That's a long time.
Yeah, but to your friend who questioned digital ID, what's the problem if I'm not doing anything wrong? I would encourage him and everybody to study the work of Catherine Austin Fitz, and her website is solari.com, Solari. And she demonstrates in many easily findable podcasts, conversations, speeches, interviews, recently with Chris Hedges, how the digital ID will become the way that we will have to use it to maybe access the internet, access websites, go in and out of stores, all in the name of protecting us to make sure we're citizens and we're not illegals. Okay. But simultaneously, they will roll out a digital currency, most likely programmable. And then that's the tyrant's wet dream, because then they can motivate and punish us to do whatever we want. And in England, the cradle of many of the freedoms we cherish, there are thousands of people today in jail, Jim, because of social media posts.
I know that. I know.
Not only theirs, but comments that other people put on their profiles have gotten them questioned, detained, brought in, locked up. And in Canada, the same kind of stuff is happening. And we saw the same kind of stuff here under COVID. So it's beyond urgent for people to wake up to these things.
I almost think in Britain, it's too late there. That's all going to go to hell. I don't think it may be too late for us, but what are our chances? What do you think?
We have to believe our chances are good. And by the evaluation of many people who study this far more than I do, no, we still do have the chance, because we are still standing on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. As watered down as they are, as ignored as they are, as we still could muster enough of us, person to person, demanding them, not complying, opting out of the real IDs of driver's licenses. I encourage everybody to go to refuserealid.org, refuserealid.org, because they've already sandwiched that into us through many driver's licenses. That's a step toward the digital ID. That's a step toward all the horrors. We have to believe that there's still the chance.
So what do you think of the whole AI thing, Bruce? I mean, my general take has been that in the short term, it's going to cause massive unemployment. I don't think AI is going to kill humanity or anything like that, but I think there could be some economic upheaval here. I think eventually it will smooth itself out, but in the short term, I think it'd be quite dangerous. What do you think?
I think the immediate danger is it's going to help everything that isolates us into our individual silos of reality, because there are already young people who are not going to know that the color film of Abraham Lincoln playing golf is AI generated. And they'll argue with their neighbor about whether or not that was true. They'll argue with their neighbor about whether the Civil War came before World War II or not.
Uh-huh. You're right. I never thought about that, but you're absolutely correct. My God. Yeah. Abraham Lincoln playing golf on color film.
I don't know if a tall guy has an advantage at golf. I really don't know.
I don't either. I don't know. I've only played casually, so yeah. All right, let's talk about the JFK assassination then. So I'm pulling this out of one of your podcasts. You said if you want to understand America today, you have to understand JFK's assassination. And
yep,
that makes sense to me too. But why don't you explain it?
It easily can be interpreted as the moment when the players who are always been behind the scenes of all governments stepped onto the stage and said, look what we can do. Look what you can see that we can do. And there's nothing you can do about it, because the official story is nonsense to anyone who looks at it. And yet our government has supported the official story. And worse, if the United States, as I believe and many also do, was recaptured by the British Empire for its purposes of global exploitation and domination, JFK was the last good man and good president and good American who reached the presidency. And since his assassination, we have been in the hands of the rich, who would use our government, as they would use all governments, for their own purposes: population control, resource control, and also the money to be made by sickening, managing the sicknesses, and then now it's depopulating us. So I contend that his assassination was the climax of the story of America at the end of Act Two. And it threw us into Act Three, and America ended with 9/11 and the USA Patriot Act and the eradication of our constitutional rights. So his assassination is worth studying for two huge reasons. First, to get clear that the government was behind it and certainly behind the cover up. So, should we ever trust a word out of any representative of the federal government? No, not until we see the proof. No, they have to be assumed to be lying to us. And second of all, to be inspired by his greatness, because he's a door into what can still save us, which are the ideals of the American founding, which is the interpretation, the definition of what is reality and what are human beings on this planet. What could we be? And it's, productive and happy and good to each other. And that's really the nature of reality. And also, it's hand in glove with the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I want your thoughts about those things I just shared.
Well, specifically, it appears to me, to a lot of other people, that it was the CIA that arranged for Kennedy's killing because he was going to dismantle the organization. Yeah, I mean, it started in '47. It immediately got out of control. Basically, it was suddenly under no oversight of anyone, and he was tired of it, and especially after the Bay of Pigs thing, which the problem, if you ask me, is that the CIA thought that Kennedy abandoned them during the Bay of Pigs, and Kennedy thought the CIA screwed him for lack of information. So I mean, they were at each other's throats, and it was somebody said, well, let's off the guy, and we can make it. He had so many enemies, we can make it look like somebody else did it. That's I mean, if you want, I can go in very specifically. I have an idea of what happened in Dallas at 12:30. I think I basically buy James Files' story. Are you familiar with that? About
I am familiar with his story,
Yeah.
and I've seen the proponents and I've seen the debunkers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There are people who've say they've successfully debunked his story, but all in all, I mean, his story is that the CIA hired the Chicago mob to do it, and that was my impression is it's still a standard procedure, because technically the CIA is not supposed to work within the United States, so they would basically outsource it. So they hired the Chicago mob to off Kennedy, and Files was one of their premier shooters, and he said Chuck Nicoletti hired him to do it, and that Nicoletti was in the tall text building. I think at this point it's pretty obvious there was more than one shooter. I mean, it's like, yeah. So Files says he was at the grassy knoll, and the one thing that I buy about Files' story is that he said he had a signature after he shot that he would bite on a bullet casing and leave it. And I don't know if you know, this was about 17 years later. Some guy with a metal detector found a spent casing with teeth marks in it. At that very spot. So yeah, I basically think that's what went down. And as far as Files says, Oswald was involved, but he might not have been a shooter. I mean, we know he was in the building. We know now he was a CIA asset. We know that for sure. He probably brought the guns in, but whether he was a shooter is almost irrelevant at this point. It almost doesn't matter. But he was involved.
Yeah, no,
That's my theory.
Last year at one of the conferences in Dallas, I met Dr. David Mantik, who has published for decades now his analysis of the X-rays in the National Archive. And he's a scientist who can do the spectrometry of the light density, and he's also a doctor and a physician. And he has published conclusive work, Jim, that shows that Kennedy was hit in the head by 3 bullets nearly simultaneously, 2 from the front, 1 from the back.
Right.
And regarding Oswald, I had the privilege of getting to meet a woman named Judith Vary Baker, who started telling the world around 2000, and now she's written many, many books. We've published a lot of them, tryingday.com. I don't work for them anymore, but I still say we. And she had a love affair with Lee Harvey Oswald that last summer in 1963.
Yeah.
And she's written one of her great books is called Me and Lee. And she describes how Lee was a patriot who was used by various intelligence agencies, primarily the CIA. And in the last weeks, he was telling Judith, you have to lay low. I'm involved in a plot. I think they're going to try and kill the president because everything's compartmentalized and he's moved like a pawn.
Yeah.
And if I try to run, he was afraid they would kill Marina and his two daughters. He's going to stay in it. And if he can't disrupt the plot, at least there'll be one less weapon being fired at the president, because apparently she inferred he was instructed to fire from the window. It's a fascinating revelation about now Oswald didn't have a malicious or illegal or malevolent bone in his body. And he was exactly what he said in the hallway on Friday night or Saturday.
Right.
I'm just a patsy.
Right. It's pretty obvious he was the designated patsy ahead of time, that they fingered him, and and he realized that probably maybe a half hour after the shooting, that it's me, I'm the guy, you know.
Jim, when we're done, I'm going to email you links to some other work of friends of mine now, Paul Fitzgerald and Elizabeth Gould, husband and wife, longtime authors and journalists, who have developed the history of the Fitzgerald family going back to Ireland, 1,000 years ago, 700, 800 years ago. And they make the case that JFK's murder on November 22nd was retribution from the people who consider themselves the descendants of the Knights Templar for the 1307 November 22nd papal decree from the Pope to destroy the Knights Templars. And also the body of interpretation that says Dealey Plaza is an outdoor Masonic temple, as Washington, D.C. is a Masonic city. Because Dealey Plaza has a white obelisk, just like the Washington Monument. It has pools of water right next to it, just like the Washington Monument. It's named after so-and-so Dealey from the 1930s, who founded one of their first newspapers, built by the Masons. And talk about, wow, who and what is behind the scenes for centuries.
Yeah, really.
And that's hand in glove with the theory of my former boss, Chris Milligan, publisher at tryingday.com, that the Kennedy assassination was meant to repeat the Lincoln assassination, where a war and the assassination of a beloved president crippled the psyche of the nation and also destroyed a generation of young men and addicted plenty of them to drugs, a la the 1860s with the Civil War and the death of Abraham Lincoln. Now, that's fine speculation with nothing but, circumstantial evidence, and you have to be open-minded to see those ducks in a row. And it goes back to the point I tried to make earlier, which is, let's look at the hard evidence. Let's investigate and try to prosecute real people for real crimes. And then we can indulge their motives, okay? But at the very, very least, it comes back to our constitutional rights and how JFK's assassination, what we lost with him and his brother and Martin Luther King, the future we could have had, the great things that Kennedy was making this country in his short 3 years are worth passionate study as a model to inspire us today to put into leadership people who would do the same things.
My mind's racing here, so I'm just going to go right on to this. If I'm right in your book, you also wrote about the RFK assassination, which seems, now that's really weird, because it seems on the surface completely cut and dried, and yet if you start looking into it, isn't at all. I mean, that looks like it was a conspiracy too, and Saran probably didn't shoot that Kennedy, even though he's pointing the gun at him and firing it. He probably didn't hit him. It's like, it's real. I mean, the whole thing's just so bizarre. It's mind blowing. But I don't. I mean, the coroner, the L.A. coroner, Tamaguchi, not Namaguchi. He brought this stuff up about the fact that about so Sirhan is standing 3 feet in front of Kennedy and pulls the trigger on his gun, but the coroner says he was shot behind his ear from 1 inch away.
Yeah.
And what?
Yeah.
You know?
No,
And then
no.
the Saran's gun held eight cartridges, and they found 13 bullet holes on the walls. It's crazy. The whole thing's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And how is that? How has no real journalism exposed that? How have no district attorneys or other prosecutors in California not brought that truth out? That's in my chapter on 9/11, frankly, because I take a tangent into the CIA, which let me talk about their MK Ultra mind control programs, which I use Sirhan as an example of how he was more than likely hypnotized.
Right.
And
He was literally the Manchurian Candidate, it looks like.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I reference and recommend a book by Lisa Pease, Pease, called A Lie Too Big to Fail, all about the Senator Robert Kennedy assassination and the witnesses who saw other people with guns, the people who saw someone standing on a table next to Sirhan, the evidence that Sirhan was probably firing blanks, which would have reassured the real assassin behind Senator Kennedy. The 13 bullets you mentioned are those that were taken out of the senator and a number of the victims.
Yeah.
But there are many, many other holes behind them and in the ceiling that plausibly there were up to 15, 17, 18 bullets fired.
Right.
Because 4 or 5 other people were struck besides Senator Kennedy. And okay, in the face of this enormous evil, it does come back to, like, we just have to tell ourselves we're adults who can handle the truth. And the solace and encouragement to read history, to realize this isn't personal. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is what humans do. We rise and fall in empires at the hands of malicious, sadistic murderers, and yet we must still be nice, be polite. How are you? Fall in love, have babies, bind up the wounds, and encourage people to, courageously pursue your dreams, but also have the strength to prosecute crimes and to say, no, I'm not going to get that digital ID. No, I'm not going to take your shot because I don't know what's in it. No, I'm going to listen to these people who say that vaccines have never been proven safe and effective. So it's a balance between loving life and also standing up for ourselves.
On the vaccines for COVID, I've never wanted to make the jump here. I don't know. I assume you probably know this, that the Cleveland Clinic has surveyed 50,000 of their patients. They came to the conclusion this was not the actual original vaccines, but that the booster shots didn't work at all. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I make the distinction there because they weren't talking about the original shots. They were talking about the booster shots. But of course, the point of the booster shots is for you not to get COVID. And they determined that more people who had the booster shots got COVID than didn't get COVID, which means they simply did not work.
I was aware of that fact about that. They just didn't work. But I'm also, I don't want to interrupt your point. Are you?
No, please go ahead.
Oh, the shots, Jim, the shots. They are almost certainly a bioweapon. They are worth everybody finding what Naomi Wolf has published about it and her dailyclout.io, specifically the book called The Pfizer Papers. And find Naomi Wolf's Substack, because for 4 or 5 years now, she has been pouring out research that indicates it's destroying women's fertility. It's destroying women's reproductive system. It's destroying men's, sterility and ability to have, the sperm counts necessary to reproduce the human race. And like I alluded to earlier, the path of destruction, injury, death in the vaccinated populations. Mark Crispin Miller's Substack about all those who are dying, continue to die suddenly, And the work, last reference source, of Edward Dowd, former BlackRock investment analyst, who is documenting the surging extra death rates. That phrase of the surplus, not the surplus deaths, but the average mortality, all-cause mortality, is almost a rocket shot up since the inflicting of the COVID vaccines. That is the most alarming thing going on, that by many people it dwarfs what the Nazis did to its innocent victims in World War II. What this COVID shot is doing to sicken and depopulate the human race.
Yeah. So, Bruce, why do you think our elite overlords want to depopulate the planet?
Because they have the tech now to survive with far less than the billions that are on the planet. They needed massive, nutrition and fertilizer to make food grow fast, because we used to be industrial based with physical labor. So they needed all of those in the factories in the 1800s, up until, recently. But now with AI and the crazy, amazing tech that they have, they just don't need this many people on the planet cluttering up. They want it all to themselves. But they're not going to do it too fast, because we could win by our sheer numbers if we understood what was going on. So they're very, very happy to poison us and make money managing our care as they destroy our ability to reproduce.
This is the part where I look crazy, but I don't care because I'm old and I don't give a shit anymore. People who have asked people have been abducted by aliens, who have asked the aliens what we should do. What should humanity do? Several of them have said they've gotten the same answer, and the answer is you should have more children.
And the whole scare that the world was overpopulated, that was a lie coming out of England, and it fueled the whole eugenics movement in the late 1800s and the 1900s. This whole science, the idea of scarcity, the idea we have to save the planet from overpopulation, and the whole nonsense, I'm convinced, of climate change and global warming.
It's
a scam for the same thing, to regulate us and our carbon footprint, to regulate us and to get us used to a life of deprivations and austerity, versus the fact that this planet and our technology, we could grow and sustain multiple times the world's population.
Yes.
And there's a lot of hope. I want to share something that represents tons of hope, but give you a chance to interject where we are right now. Continue?
Yeah, no, please. Yes.
A book called Who We Are. 2 volumes are out now. The author's working on the 3rd volume. Who We Are, America's Struggle for Universal Progress.
And who is the author?
Anton Chaikin.
Oh, I've had him on the show.
God bless you.
Yes.
All right.
He's fantastic.
All right. What do you remember that he taught about who we really are, our legacy of achievement and life loving along the lines of Hamilton's American system of economics?
I got to be honest. It all blends together after a while. Bruce, I can't remember. I had him on about a year ago. Yeah.
Who We Are, Anton Chaikin. Check him out. This is why history is just, it's so buried and ignored and devalued, because it's so empowering. Today, we could implement our versions of Hamilton's system of economics, which was all about how the United States could develop its domestic economy and thrive with prosperity by the aggressive development of technology, and share that technology with every country on the planet. It would fulfill the American Revolution against empire and colonizers who want to exploit other people, because when every country on the earth can manufacture and develop its own domestic economies and be strong enough so that no other countries could invade, then it would be a world of countries like the United States of America pursuing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness ad infinitum. Okay, so that's at our fingertips.
Yeah, he was a very interesting guy. But mean to have him on again.
Yeah, but priceless, valuable work. that really, when enough of us know it, we'll throw out bums. We won't tolerate deception. We'll insist on transparency and accountability from our representatives, and have them work to fund and empower us with freedom and productivity.
All right, so Bruce, before we go here, we got to talk about the Small Business League. But that said, I want to ask you one more philosophical question. What are your thoughts on life after death, for lack of a better term, near-death experiences or anything like that? It seems to me, I will preface this, that there's a growing amount of scientific evidence that something happens after we die, that not necessarily maybe Christian heaven per se, but that something's going on here, and that's more than just what's on the surface here. What have you looked into this, or what are your thoughts?
I've looked into it a lot, and I completely believe that, and it gives me an incredible hope. But I could also share, the sources for. I think there's thousands of such stories of near-death experiences, and when you combine that with history stories of the dreams that have come true and the ghosts and the visions that really sane, sober people have always had, I am persuaded that we are eternal souls who are playing a game called forgetfulness, of playing hide and seek. Like, I'll have a human life. It'll be scary as beep until I figure out that I'm an eternal soul who should love others as myself, because when we love each other, we realize there's only one of us here. There's just consciousness that wants to love and grow and express itself as life and living things. Yes.
Yeah, and isn't it funny, for all the, you were talking about the colonizers and all these people that are trying to control the planet, control the population, that at the end of the day, the most precious thing we all have is basically love for our family and friends. I mean, there's really nothing more to it. I mean,
Yeah. And they are to be pitied, because trauma-based mind control is how these families often, it seems, reproduce themselves. They are life-hating because they had such abuse when they were young, and you could say that current events in their hands is MK Ultra mind control inflicted society-wide. It's to traumatize us with fear so that we'll just do what we're told, and we don't have the confidence to experiment with solutions, and we don't dare, fight back. So love is the answer to all fear, and fear is the enemy, because it lets us be led by the nose.
Can I ask you a personal question? How do you get on? I mean, there's a lot of people think I'm nuts. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people think you're nuts too. How do you deal with it?
I process it, and then I laugh and say, hey, it's gotten me this far. And when you have the courage to talk about the things that you believe, or that you suspect, or that you want to talk about, yes, you do find the naysayers and the mockers. But then, you find folks like you and I are like, hey, I'm really interested in that. And I'm certain of that, or I suspect that, or I like to indulge the belief that this is true. But what a world. What a world.
Yeah, really, really. So what are you doing with the Small Business League? How does it work?
It's the American Small Business League, and it is set up to expose the fact that federal contracts that are supposed to go to small businesses, unfortunately, are really going to big businesses. It's been happening for decades. And if that got fixed, the small businesses, if they really got those billions of dollars of contracts every year, Jim, they would create millions of new jobs on top of the jobs we create every year, and we would really have economic prosperity.
Isn't it amazing that so many people start small businesses, even though it's so ungodly fucking difficult? I mean, seriously, it's like, I mean, at this point, I talked to some of my entrepreneurial friends, and everyone seems to agree. It's like the government doesn't want you to do this. Every single possible hurdles put in your way. So yeah, if you can get around these 23 things, you can open your doors. It's awful. It's terrible.
Yeah. But as one who had a small business, there is nothing like being your own boss.
Yeah.
Kiss sleep goodbye. Everything that has to get done, you have to do it. But at the end of the day, you're exercising your own power and control. And there are tons of folks who will always want to try, and they should be encouraged to try, no matter how hard it is. You just nailed what took me a while to understand, because I'm new on this job just for about 9 months or so, the federal government does next to nothing for small businesses. And
Yeah,
Jim, here's my fire hose of factoids. We are a small business nation.
that's right.
99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses.
Yeah, I know.
That folks like, what? Yeah. But you don't hear about it because big businesses own the corporate media and the mainstream media and everyone in Washington. So you're always hearing about the stock market. You're always hearing about big businesses, and you're always hearing about loans. 1 or 2% of all small businesses ever get an SBA backed loan. Small businesses are supposed to get 23% of all federal contracts.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And every year the government says, we met that goal. It's a lie. That's because of bad policies and loopholes. In reality, small businesses probably get around 3 or 4% of the federal budget.
Yeah.
So our site is asbl.com. Anyone interested in that, please look into it. Find our phone number, call and talk to me about it. We're on a mission to expose this.
Yeah, that's really cool. Good for you. You're doing good things, Bruce. Well, oh, by the way, here let's put your book on the screen. Here it is.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this came out, was it 2021, was it? Am I
Yep.
right?
And folks can read all about it at brucedetorres.com. There's
Yeah.
amazing reviews there. Just read about it. See, like, hey, I'll buy that. Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. I really appreciate this. If you'd like, I'd love to have you back sometime.
Anytime. This was a true pleasure, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. Our thanks to Bruce de Torres for joining us there. Fascinating conversation. Really interesting guy. I'm a lucky man. I get to talk to a lot of interesting people. Before we go on to our little Gymcast here, I want to talk, elaborate a little bit on something Bruce and I talked about, and that is the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. Because this is nuts. This is crazy. So Robert F. Kennedy was shot in the basement pantry, or one of the basement pantries, at the Ambassador Hotel on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles on June 5th, 1968. He had just won the Democratic primary in California for the presidency. He was running for president. All appearances was that he was not only going to win the nomination, but that he was going to win the presidency. That was basically, it seemed inevitable. A guy named Sirhan was charged with shooting him from 3 feet away in this pantry with a little pistol he had, right smack, with dead center to his face. That was the charge. There's no film or still photos of the assassination, the shooting itself. As soon as the shots went off, people started to roll film and take pictures, but there's no actual photo evidence of the actual shooting. Now, that said, in this tiny little pantry, there was about 40 people they were walking through. It was essentially a glorified hallway. Basically, they walked through the kitchen and through the pantry to get out of the hotel. And he basically had an entourage, and a bunch of press people. There were about 40 people in this little room. So a whole bunch of people saw this. That's the thing. And you think, like I said, like Bruce and I were talking, it seems like a complete open and shut case. This guy's standing in front of Kennedy with a pistol and shooting at him. And you think, oh my God, look, this guy killed Robert F. Kennedy. Until the coroner's report came back. I think the coroner's name, I mentioned it during our interview, was Thomas Noguchi, I think his name was. He was the head coroner for the city of Los Angeles. And he said that even though Sirhan was standing in front of Kennedy from 3 feet away, that the bullet that killed Kennedy was shot directly behind his right ear from a distance of 1 inch. In other words, basically the pistol was stuck up to his head. That's what they said. Now, that doesn't square with what people saw at all. And that's the really weird part. And Bruce and I were talking about this too. So, Saran's gun held 8 cartridges, and there were 13 bullet holes in the wall. And I didn't actually know this. I have to go back and look at this. Bruce said several other people were injured, and I did not know that. I was under the impression that Kennedy was the only person who was shot. But that makes sense, too. There were 13 bullet holes in the wall from a gun that only fired 8 shots. Now, as soon as Saran fired the gun, there was a guy named Rosie Greer, who was a very famous football player at that time. I think he played for the Los Angeles Rams, and he had been hired by the Kennedy campaign to be a bodyguard for Robert F. Kennedy. And he tackled Saran onto one of those rolling, steel rolling kitchen tables you see, in commercial kitchens, and basically pounded his gun onto the table until Saran let go. And in the process, all 8 of the 7 shots that were left in the gun went off. Now, Saran only fired a single shot at Kennedy, ostensibly. So, and then on top of this, okay, so Saran says he does not remember any of this. He said he remembers going to the hotel, and he remembers going to the hotel, and he remembers seeing a woman. He was flirting with a woman in a polka dot dress. He says he remembers that. The next thing he remembers, he's in jail. Now you can say, okay, he's a criminal. He's just lying. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the current Health and Human Services Secretary, he is taught, Saran's still alive. He's still in prison, life in prison. And Kennedy has met Saran and talked to him, and he's convinced that Saran did not kill his father. He's not the only one. The whole thing is so bizarre, it's unbelievable. So there's several people who were immediately outside of the hotel where they were going to exit. I know this hotel very well. I lived only a couple blocks from there, and I used to hang out there a lot, but I don't know where this particular kitchen exit is. That there's a woman in a white polka dot dress and 2 guys came running out of the hotel, and she was yelling, "We shot him, we shot him." Now, the theory is, have you ever seen the movie The Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra? I think it's from 1961 or something like that. Where it's a Cold War movie where the enemy, which is I don't know if they actually name it in the movie or not, the Soviets, they basically brainwash an American soldier so that on a certain signal he would carry out an assassination. That's basically what it is. And a lot of people think that's actually what happened here, that Saran was brainwashed somehow, either at the moment or beforehand, and killed and shot Kennedy, or essentially shot Kennedy on remote command. It's crazy. But the thing is, like I said, he didn't shoot Kennedy. Even though he's sitting there with a gun shooting at his head, like Bruce said, the impression was that that gun had blanks in it. It's just, I mean, and so, like, who plans something like that? I mean, even, man, if that's the CIA, they did a good job. That's all I can tell you. It's like no one would ever suspect this, and no one really ever has. I mean, numerous people have brought up all the inconsistencies. I mean, the police, the coroner, numerous investigators, all sorts of people. And yet, but the thing is, it's so cut and dry on the surface that like nobody listens to anything else. So what do you do? I don't know. It's a really, really crazy thing. It's way more crazy than the JFK assassination, which basically, as I said in the interview, I and a bunch of other people, more or less, I mean, we don't all agree on everything, but it's pretty much agreed now that JF that John Kennedy was shot from more than one direction. It was not a single shooter. It was not Oswald in the window alone. It was not. There's too much forensic evidence that suggests this. The woman who was the forensic scientist for the city of Dallas for 20 years, and she said, I have firsthand knowledge of the evidence. We actually have the files and have have the evidentiary material, and she says, I'm absolutely convinced he was shot from the front. And that then, like Torres brought up today, there's the autopsy people thought that too. It was like, no, I mean, he was, and um, Bruce brought up one thing that I have talked about previously, and that is, it's not just that he was shot from more than one direction. It appears that, and James Files, the guy who I referenced too, regarding this, he said this too. He said that him and one of his fellow shooters from the back hit Kennedy in the head at the same time. It was complete utter chance. But actually screwed the autopsy up to the shooter's advantage, because they couldn't. It basically messed up the evidence. So I don't know. It's just really crazy. People doing crazy things, killing each other. You know, I, I'm such a cynic at this point. It's unbelievable. So what do we got here? I'll tell you what we got. For those, I haven't talked much about the government shutdown because it's boring. It's boring, and like, who really serious? I know the thing is, now this coming week, all the SNAP recipients are not going to get their money, and that's apparently, there are people really bitching about this. And David Strom wrote a piece in Hot Air today about the fact that regardless of what most Americans think, most people who get SNAP benefits don't actually need them. So I don't know, and they're being very, very selfish. A lot of people now have said they're going to start looting stores unless they get their SNAP money, but that's not the reason I'm bringing this up here. I'm bringing this up because it appears now from polling that the Democrats are being blamed by the American public for the shutdown, not the Republicans, and it's not going well for them. Because now they're painting themselves in a corner. They're trying to figure out how to get out of it, and then so they came up with a plan and this is regarding this stupid stuff about the new White House ballroom that Trump is building. So Caroline Levitt, this was yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. It must have been yesterday because it's Tuesday. I don't think they do this on Sunday. A reporter during the White House daily briefing asked her, "Is this the only thing that the president wants to improvement the president wants to make to the White House grounds, the actual physical facility?" And she said, "Yes, as far as I know." And she said, "I can tell you for certain that right now, at least, the ballroom is the president's top priority." Now, she was answering a question, and the question was, is he going to make more changes to the White House grounds? And she said, this ballroom is his top priority right now. Now, that was taken out of context by basically every Democrat on the planet and on the Hill, and where they ran stuff on X and stuff, saying that they ran it as a literal quote, that the ballroom is the president's top priority about everything. And, people are saying, well, he's insensitive, all sorts of stuff. Well, basically, it was a lie because it was taken out of context. And even now, 48 hours later, they're still running with this, and it appears that they're running with it because they got nothing. They don't have anything else. So they're trying to figure out how to gracefully get out of this now. And they might not have a graceful way out. They might just have to can it. Because the thing is, and the Republicans played this very, very well, and that is, they've been offering what's called a clean resolution. In other words, basically, we just keep on going like where we're going. Nothing changes. And the Democrats, they said, well, no, we need $1.5 trillion for Medicare. And that's where the hangup has been. And the public has said, well, no, you can do that later. Why not just reopen the government? And that's where the Democrats are getting blamed. But Harry Enton, the polling guy on CNN, he's brought up that right now, and these numbers are kind of hard to crunch because they're from different polls. So forgive me if I get this a little or even a lot wrong. I mean, the conclusion is I'm fine with the fact that more people are blaming the Democrats than Republicans, but it looks like it's about twice as many people are blaming the Democrats and Republicans. I might be wrong about that, but right now the public is blaming the Democrats for the shutdown, which does not look good for them either. And here's something that's very close to my heart. Bill Gates announced today that he does not think climate change is going to be a real threat to humanity. He's at a change of heart. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I've been saying this for years. I have, two high horses I get on this program. The fact that extraterrestrials are coming here and get used to it, and that human-caused climate change is a hoax. Once again, I point this out every time I bring this up. I have to point it out. Global warming is real. The world is warming up. The world has been warming up. Earth has been warming up consistently for the last 300 years. But there's a silver lining. There's a smoking gun in that. We've only had industrialization on the planet for the last 150 years. So 150 years before that, the world warmed up anyway. Humans weren't doing anything. And the world is warming up, but humans aren't causing it, or very minor. It's like, there's various studies. Some people say maybe a little bit. Okay, fine. I understand that. That would make sense, but not in any major way. And now finally, Bill Gates is getting on the train. And that's because this whole climate thing is finally, after 30 freaking years of people talking about this, is finally falling apart. It was the biggest single grift ever presented to the American public. The only reason this was pressed is to get money out of people. We need to raise your taxes because we need to deal with climate change. That's it. It was completely made up, totally, completely. And you say, well, how come so many scientists went along with it? They had to, otherwise they wouldn't get any money for any of their other projects. For years, about 20 years now, if you did not agree with the mantra of human-caused climate change, you could not get any money for research as a climatologist. And that's the reason everybody agreed. There you go. Even though I think it was November of 23, I think it was, 1,500 scientists ran a full-page article ad in the New York Times as a letter saying that climate change was a hoax. And the amazing thing is, you go online, you can't find any record of that. Google doesn't have a copy of it, of that letter. Full-page ad in the New York Times. It's just amazing. It's disappeared. It was a rabbit hole, or whatever you want to call it. So Gates is finally saying this, and so now this whole thing's probably going to collapse. And I have to, I think Al Gore's a moron. I think this guy's a fucking idiot, but I do have to give him credit here. So they have launched a new app, and in this app, and this is what I've always said, there is a kernel of truth to all this climate change stuff, and it's not CO2. Carbon dioxide is your friend. Carbon dioxide is not pollution. It's not the enemy. We need carbon dioxide. We need more of it, actually. Excuse me. You know what we don't need? Pollution, crap, dirt in the air. We don't need that. And so now, apparently, one of Al Gore's projects, they put out an app that it does not track CO2. It literally tracks soot. It tracks dirt in the air. And that's good, because that's the problem. That's the problem we need to address. Now, we've done it here in the United States. We've done a pretty good job addressing it. The problem is India and China could give a crap. They do not care. China is just spewing out pollution just willy-nilly in the atmosphere. It's unbelievable. I mean, they have so many bad smog days over there in certain cities, mind-boggling. And same with India too. Now, if I'm right, India finally just surpassed China as the most populous country on the planet. I think they both have about 1.6 billion people, and that would be about 5 times more people in the United States population. But yeah, we've done a pretty good job cleaning up our act. Now, you can always do better. I would like to see us going more to nuclear power, and which is basically clean. And I think that's going to happen because of AI. Because AI needs so much goddamn electricity, we don't have a choice. we're going to have to start building nuclear power plants left and right if we're going to do this, because it's unbelievable. The average query to like Chat GTP takes 7 times more electricity than the average web search. And you're thinking, well, Jimmy, I'm just searching on my little computer here, for kumquats or avocados or something, Yeah, it doesn't. But there's millions, there's billions of those searches done every day. And if you don't think the electricity, there's a reason Google and Facebook have these giant data centers to store your stupid vacation pictures. Now, this has finally been announced. I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting this for like 25 years. Google has said finally they're going to start deleting old videos from YouTube. Up till now, so YouTube started in 2006. Up to now, every single video posted to YouTube is still there. You can find all of them, including the very first one that was put up by one of the founders at a zoo or something like that. They all go back, but finally they said they're going to. Because I don't understand where they're getting the space to store this stuff. Right now, the last quote I saw is that 300 minutes of video is uploaded to YouTube every minute. I think that's what it was. 300 minutes every minute. Now you think about that. It's like, or is it 300 hours? I can't remember. It's some ungodly amount. So they obviously have, I don't know how many data centers YouTube runs. I'm sure it's several across the planet. They have teams of people that just run around all day long and install solid state hard drives. That's all they do. They're buying them in bulk by the thousands every day. I can't even wrap my mind around it. I have to tell you, I was in the tech business for quite a few years, and my partner and we came up with the idea for YouTube before YouTube did. We actually did, and we decided not to do it because we knew that the storage costs for all that video would be prohibitively expensive. We would not be able to keep up. And actually, the guys who started YouTube, they couldn't keep up either. If Google had not bought YouTube, YouTube would have folded. Google was basically the only company on the planet that could run it because of the storage demands. So now finally they're going to start deleting stuff. So this is going to be very interesting. But like I said, that a little web search on Google takes up 7 times more electricity than asking a question. So it's the electrical demands for this are going to be mind-boggling. I've heard that is it by 2030? I think it is 12% of all the electricity on the planet will be devoted to AI search. No, 12%, 1/8. Unbelievable. And speaking of AI, the Business Insider, the website, news website at insider.com, and I can't remember, they're owned by Penske. I can't remember who owns them. And the guy who started it doesn't own it anymore. I know that. But at any rate, they finally decided now they are going to give AI a byline. So not only they're asking AI to write stories for Business Insider, they're not going to be coy about it anymore. They're not going to try to pass it off as a person. Where the byline would say written by Joe Blow, now it will say written by AI. So yeah, here we are. Yeah, we're asking the computer's writing stuff, and we're admitting it. And actually, that's probably a good thing that they admit it. It probably is. Give the AI byline. What the hell, All right, we don't have a lot of time tonight because our talk with Bruce went overtime. So I got one last thing here, and you might have heard about this. I ran this by my wife; she had heard about it, about the fact that this is at the Sequoia Park Zoo in Eureka, California. So that zoo is right next to the woods. Okay, some black bear, decided to pay a visit to his friends, the black bears in the zoo. So you talking about bears busting out of the zoo? This bear busted into the zoo. This bear entered the zoo and entered the bear enclosure and socialized for a while and then left. Nothing happened, no damage, not even no violence among the bears, nothing. He came, he spent a little time visiting, and supposedly the park staff, they opened the gate and he walked out. Yeah, well, I know. So I got relatives who live up north, and the bears up there. Well, they're hungry. I don't know if bears are hungry and they're large. So my aunt has a large freezer on her back porch outside, right? And she noticed that regularly during the afternoon in the bright of day, the a bear would come up and open the freezer and rifle through it, see if there's anything in there he wanted. And also now there's more and more reports of people saying the bears have learned how to run doorknobs. I mean, there's just a very frightening story of a bear. It didn't bust into some cabin somewhere. It walked in. It opened the door. I shouldn't laugh. That would not be funny. And nobody got hurt there either. But still, I'm sure that'd be quite frightening. Oh, who's at the door, honey? Oh, there's a bear there. It's coming in. Yeah, right. I want to thank Bruce de Torres once again for a fantastic discussion tonight. It's like I'm so blessed I get to talk to so many interesting people. It's just amazing. Tomorrow night, we got Joe Wolverton. Actually, Joe Wolverton II. He writes for the New American Magazine, and he's a constitutional law scholar at the John Birch Society. I'm kind of getting a little nervous. I don't want you people to think I'm shilling for the John Birch Society. He's like the third person from JPS we've had on here, and I think maybe 2 or 3 months. So no, it's just that there's a lot of interesting people here, and so and they say, well, how about this guy? Yeah, all right, sure. We're rifling through at least 15 guests a month here. So I mean, I've told you this before. Doing the show is not hard. Booking the show is hard. Finding guests and good people. And I have a woman named Kimberly who's helping me, and she's doing a fantastic job. I mean, this summer forgive me, we've rocked it. I can't remember the last time we had a dud interview here. It's been months. I mean, these people are really, really interesting. And even I said this to Bruce today too during the interview about the fact that if you've written a book, you're probably good fodder for an interview, because people who write books have to clarify their thoughts, and it's not easy. Writing a book is not easy. If you're talking about a minimum of 150 pages, and it has to be cogent. A lot of people don't actually write their books; they get somebody else to write them. Well, that doesn't count as far as I'm concerned. But so yeah, Joe Worlison is going to be on tomorrow. On Thursday, I had I had a Halloween show planned, but it fell through. All the guys, the usual suspects, our usual month in review panel, they came on a couple of years ago, and we had a fantastic Halloween show. Went great. People loved it. Got a lot of good response on that. But none of them can make it. So screw that. So Thursday, Halloween's on Friday. Of course, we don't do shows on Friday. On Thursday, we have Nils Grevelius is coming back, and we ran his last show from 3 weeks ago as a repeat yesterday. So now he's coming back on live on Thursday, specifically to talk about he's a private investigator out of Los Angeles. We're going to talk about the Louvre heist. Now, about the guys who stole the crown jewels from the Louvre in Paris, because at first people thought they might have been bold, but they might not have been smart. And now apparently, I think all 3 of them have been arrested, if I'm right. So we'll get the skinny from him on that, and we're also going to talk about Jonathan Lockwood, our military strategist, because that afternoon Trump is meeting with Xi in China. No, actually, I think they're meeting in South Korea. The meeting's in South Korea, but he's meeting President Xi of China that afternoon. So we're gonna talk about what's going on there strategy wise with China. It's really kind of interesting already, because the president got back from Japan today, and he has arranged for another rare earth pact with Japan, as he did with Malaysia, and he's cobbling together a coalition of rare earth providers, suppliers, so that maybe we don't have to use China at all, and then we have some leverage against China because that's one of the few things we have to get from them right now. There's no place on earth we can find that stuff, and so by going to other places and cobbling together a coalition, Trump is basically trying to usurp them, and that's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. So that's Thursday, and I don't know what's happening next week. we had a problem here. Both Kimberly and I got really sick. I was sick for like 9 days, and she was too, about the same amount of time. And we didn't quite overlap, but that was even worse. She was sick, and then I was sick, and it's like, and so then we went 3 weeks without basically booking anybody. So I know you want to hear, well. Want to thank you folks for watching, though. I do really appreciate it a lot. I hope you liked the interview with Bruce today. I loved it. I love doing it. Tomorrow, Joe Wolverton, we'll talk to him. That's Joe Wolverton the second, actually. He's a constitutional scholar and author, and we'll ask him about the Constitution. How's that sound? Sounds like something he knows about. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you folks, wherever you may be. I'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Thanks. Take care.